Hi guys, welcome to another podcast session presented by SportsKhabri. We're talking about Indian football, and in particular, we're talking about BFC because the Blues have been on an amazing run. We've won the last 8 out of 8. We've stitched together this amazing run of form that is carrying us through, and we've gathered enough momentum moving into the playoffs. Hopefully, we'll do well there and we'll make it to the semi-final. Um, but things weren't very rosy when the season started, guys. Uh, we we won our opener against Northeast, but then we did not win any of the next 5 games. Before we move into discussing why that was and why we didn't start that well, let's talk about how the mood is right now in Bangalore and how the mood is at this stadium in particular. Shaggy, or BFC fan, what do you think the mood is like right now at Kantirva?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Rahul and Sandy. Good morning to you all. I think this season has been a little topsy-turvy for us. And when we look at the season now, at this point of time, there is a tremendous amount of joy, to be honest, that we are on a riding winning wave, which is hardly could have been predicted how the season went at the first 10 games for us. And I think there is a tremendous amount of optimism that we are going to continue this good run forward right into the qualifiers. And the stadiums are getting slowly filled. More and more people are participating. We see in general positive enthusiasm. We don't have that, the fortress feeling completely back, but we are on a good run. And I think it's slowly coming back that BFC is looking very good at its home ground at the Fortress. So, tremendous amount of optimism, joy, and definitely a topsy-turvy season for now.
Yeah, we've also got Sandeep. Sandeep is a correspondent at Deccan Herald. Sandeep, you've seen most of the BFC home games. Have you seen a change in the number of people who are coming to these games?
Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, it was not so much. But to be fair, still, I think quite a few thousands did show up, although the team was not performing. You could classify them as the hardcore fans. And subsequently, now you can see in the last 8 games in the run that they've been on, more and more people coming, especially after the Kerala game. Kerala game, obviously, being Kerala was full. Mumbai was a mountain to climb when they climbed it. And the last game I saw against FC Goa, and I did not expect that many people to turn up because it was on a weekday that there was nothing really riding on that game in some sense for Bengaluru, but people did show up. A lot of people did show up. So yeah, it's getting back to the old ways. And it sort of reflects, I guess, the performances on the field has to be the one that brings the crowd onto the stands.
Awesome. But let's start off with where the season started. It was not a great start. Do you guys pin it down to any particular reason apart from just the fans not being there? Things on the pitch. Shaggy, did you see anything tactically that made you feel like this is probably the reason we're not doing so well?
Yeah, so I think you look at the way the preseason went, right? Like you have to divide the season into preseason, the first half of the season, and now what we are having. And things have changed. Like in the Durand Cup, Simon Grayson managed to pull out a good win. I mean, Durand Cup win was a start of a good optimism because we again have had a change of coach this season, right? We moved away from Marco to Simon Grayson being appointed, and nobody was sure what we are going to get with Simon Grayson because we have never seen him, we have not heard, I mean, to be honest, of his work in Europe. Okay, and when we started and the Durand Cup win, it was optimism. But then that was built on a very defensive kind of showing. But when we actually saw what happened when the home first part of the season started, there was a lot of experimentation that was still going on with the midfield and the back line, right? Like, we are trying to still play all the three strikers up front, Sunil, Roy Krishna, Shiva, and, then we were trying to accommodate defensive chopping and changing midfield was getting chopped and changed. And the only part that I thought was consistent was like a little bit more compact towards the defensive side, which was kind of quietly being maintained throughout the season. But yeah, we tried 4-3-3, we tried 3-5-2, we tried five, going for a back five, going for a back three, going for a back four, different players into different positions. And I think that has affected somehow which was the best 11, where we couldn't figure it out until we started the winning run that, yeah, this is the best 11 we wanted to go out. But I think to credit to Simon Grayson, he had to bear a lot of fanburn because of the style of football he played, which is not what BFC fans typically like. They don't like this, counter-attacking football. And the most criticism happened when Allen went as a forward in certain games where he was trying to score a goal. So, fair amount of criticism he got for that tactics because people really didn't like counter-attacking style of football, wherein you wait and you soak up defensively and then you go and attack. So I think to get people adjusted to this formation and get wins was a big change. And I think credit to him that he stuck to it and then he believed in that philosophy that, yeah, this will get him a winning run in the later part. And he got a magical run in the 8 games. So I think overall, if you look at it, it's a lot of experimentation that happened in the mid start of the season, which has caused a lot of instability. And it took him time to figure out his best 11, which could perform on the pitch.
Sandeep, what did the Durand Cup win mean? Did it mean anything going into the season? Did it mean that we could expect something big from this BFC side?
Yeah, because if you look at it, their transfers from the way they signed Roy Krishna, Javi, being the two major big name signings, it was clear that they were trying to get back into the sort of a situation where they were challenging for the title. The last couple of years, their signings were not anything that made you stand up and say, "Oh, somebody big is coming." Okay, having said that, Clayton Silva probably is one of the best strikers in the league, but nevertheless, he didn't. He was not a big name signing, so to speak. This year they did that. Prabir also, for the ones who've seen him play before the injury, is a great signing, and he's proved to be very good. I think his relationship with Krishna is also very key in how they perform now. So yeah, there was a lot of optimism going in. Then they won the Duran Cup, which sort of completed their shelf. Right, the trophy shelf was complete. So in many ways, I feel very happy for someone like Mandar, who had to leave middle of the season, that he managed to complete the whole collection for Bengaluru FC, and the stamp and the mark that he's left on the team has been spectacular. But what that also did is when they came into the season, you thought they would hit the ground running. Like it was not a like a lot of the teams were finding itself in Duran Cup. They were chopping and changing and figuring out what to do, who to play, what system to play. A lot of the especially foreign managers. I mean, not especially all of them are foreign managers, but a lot of them did not understand the importance of a tournament like Duran Cup has to Indian football history. So they did refer to it as even Simon to an extent referred to it as a pre-season tournament. So I don't know how many of them took it as seriously as say maybe Bengaluru and all did, and probably took it seriously once they got into the semi-finals or something. So winning that was great. Then they came into the season. I agree with everything Shaggy said here. They had to find a way, but I have certain other feelings about Bengaluru also. Is that one is that they are victim of their own success. Like they've been so successful for so long, and they had 2 seasons where they didn't do well, and everybody was criticizing, and we didn't expect them to do that well either. To be completely fair, until these signings came up, but this team really does, even to this day, need some changes. They need upgrades in certain places. They need to probably look at the next generation coming in. All this was very important for this season. So, how many teams can you say were having a worse run of fixtures and still won a trophy in Indian football? Right, you had very teams who did really well and not won anything. So that is one perspective, and the other one was Simon got a lot of criticism for the brand of football that he played, but and there is this belief, and I understand Roka's for Bengaluru FC team was sort of so entertaining,
Yeah.
so beautiful to watch in so many different ways. That that kind of style has been associated with Bengaluru for all this while. But if you look at the time before and after Roka, Bengaluru never played those dominating possession style football. Ashley was always very whatever gets us the victory. He would dominate possession sometimes. Sometimes he would drop back. Carles was a very counter-attacking manager. They tried with Marco, but it didn't really click for him. And now Simon had it. And I remember speaking to Simon early on, and he said, "How you tell me how can we dominate possessions? We don't have the personnel to do that. We have one or two who can do that, but we can't play like Mumbai. We don't have those kind of players in our team. So we need to find a way to figure it out. And he was figuring it out in those early parts. And a lot of the losses were individual mistakes, right? Against Gurpreet had a howler in one game. Suresh gave away a pass in one game. Sandesh had a bad game one time. So they had to eliminate these individual mistakes. And at the other end, obviously, they were missing chances. Javi was missing it. I remember Shiva missing a few good chances as well. But then it started to click, and it's all about that confidence and the belief that you can play like this and win. And Gurpreet told me one during the middle of the run, I asked him what was the difference that you feel from the way you played then and now. Yes, some tactical changes are there. Like Rohit has come in, made a huge difference there. Pressing from the mid block, not pushing really up front. Sunil not being in the team, and the front two really doing, stretching the defense. Both of them can run in behind. All those differences also happen. But the most important thing that I felt from Gurpreet saying was the belief and the faith he had. Like understanding that, okay, you know what, you don't have to always play 15 passes and pass to cut through the team. One long ball behind the fullback is just as effective. And for them to get used to that idea, and once they did, you can see what they're really comfortable playing the style. They're difficult to break down. They don't concede that many goals, although they do tend to concede. But now it seems to be clicking, and now it's knockout. So you can't really say one team is going to win or the other. You don't really know if they're getting the home advantage. I think they will get the home advantage. And yeah, it looks interesting times. Good times back in the country, I guess.
Shaggy, what do you think about this current style of football? There is a sort of counter-attacking element to it, and just going long and direct. Uh, how have you taken to it?
See, to be fair, what Sandy said, right? Seeding position is something which is very difficult for Bengaluru fans. They don't like, in general, what I think for me personally, I was just observing Simon Grayson's this time because, we have seen, as Sandy pointed out, we have never seen that level of attacking football happening actually for the past 2 seasons. And I think that's what, again, seeing Simon using, not a possession based foot forward, style was a little, surprising. Hey, are we going to go like the past 2 seasons where you're going to, have, dependency on corners and set pieces, and that was a big question because I think, how are we going to play to get, because I think one of the things that I realized as a Bangalore fan is it's not only wins, but the style of play that also matters, to a great extent in Bangalore. I mean, as a fan. And I think what happened was without the results and that defensive and kind of, the kind of play that we were having, there was a lot of negative connotation. But once the results started flowing and once things start clicking in, then people could see why the pieces are that way and why that is effective now. Seeing in the past 8 games, we can see why it is working out the way it is because you have really two good, very counter-attacking forwards. Like they just need a chance, and once they get behind and 1-1 situation, they are capable of finishing off the games. And I remember Habas, probably if I come to ever close to comparing ATKMB under Habas, which was like the second half goals everywhere, like just to they would soak in the pressure for the first half and they would play the last 30 minutes would be their goal scoring opportunities and they would finish teams off like that. So I think it took time, but I think with the results, I think now pretty much people are, how do I say it, happy that we are on it because success is finally what, really sells in that way. So I think we gradually fans are adjusting to the style. There is a lesser and lesser now talk about how we want to play, but rather on what we want to achieve. So I think we are moving in a different direction now. So I think that's great. Like people are transitioning even to understand that this kind of football also gets you the results that you need. You don't need
Yeah.
to be always playing one type or one attacking style of football.
If I could just add something to this, I don't look at it from a fan's perspective, right? So
Yeah.
it's very interesting to see how they see it. But for me as a journalist, something that I've always associated with Bengaluru during those, glory years, let's say, was the willingness to fight. That they would always keep fighting. And there are often times that they won games which they didn't deserve to win because they just hung in there and just kept fighting and finally got the goal, or they got the goal and then just hung in there. So there are dominant wins, whatever be the situation, they were always fighting. And I think that is coming back. I haven't seen it so much in the last 2 years. Maybe at the tail end of last year, it was there a little bit more, but it's really come back now. They are hanging in there. Like if you look at the possession stats, I think most of the teams have outperformed them. The performance against Mumbai at home was I did not expect it. Like I had conversation with lots of people, and everybody thought this was a game that we'll just write off, focus on Goa, and you have to win at Goa. But they went and won both those games, so it's just about fight. And maybe Mumbai was a little, like maybe half a fraction less hungrier than they would have been because they had already won the title. That is possibly a reason as well. We saw something similar from BFC in the last game where they were probably a little less hungry than they used to be and were making very sloppy first half against Goa. But they came out in the second half. Simon gave them not a right rollicking, but he did give them a rollicking from what I've been told. And yeah, they stepped up. So that's from a journalist point of view or something that I always associate is the fight. But it's very interesting to see how the fans also look at the club and how they perform. Yeah.
But just actually quickly touch upon the Mumbai win because I don't think anybody expected us to go in and win that game. And even though Mumbai were missing Greg Stewart, I think the feeling going into the game was still that we'd probably have to hang in there, and probably nick a late goal. But it was pretty good. I think BFC played pretty well, and they didn't just sit back. They had a bit of the ball. They played with a bit of confidence also, and something that was very different. Something that I thought was very different from the other games in the season.
Yeah, I think you can actually bookend BFC season between the two Mumbai games because I think the first Mumbai game was their worst ever performance, and
Yep.
worst ever performance from a point of view of the fight because you saw when that offside line was played badly and the striker was running in. The other two players who were just behind him were the Mumbai players, not Bengaluru defenders. And you saw Simon for the first time really annoyed, and he just went after the players, and he just destroyed them, called them out for not putting in the effort. So if you look at that, I think that is a very significant result for Bengaluru. I know it's a loss, but it is a loss that they had to take. It is a loss that Simon had to get angry at because till then you saw very jovial sort of players tried that kind of one mistakes and kind of thing. For the first time, you saw an angry coach. And then you look at the performance at the other end, at the end of the season, when BFC were in a good run and they went and performed like the way they were meant or we expected them to perform. Granted, Greg Stewart's was not there, title is already done. But Noguera, who came in, has the best season ever in the ISL.
Yeah.
His numbers are outlandish. And you still had Changte and Jahu and all the rest of them also up there, Pereira Diaz and so I think that for me, that two Mumbai games showed the difference between the two teams and how different they are playing now. And basically, the only difference is the attitude. Because in the other game also they went to a back three, I think, in the second half, and then got destroyed by putting ball over the top. And here it did not happen. So yeah, that probably is the best line I can draw across the season for them.
But Grayson
I
does
think
look like a coach who has taken control, right? Nothing bigger than dropping Sunil Chetri for what 6 games straight. Shaggy, did you see that coming?
See, to be fair, right? When we saw the first 12 matches, I remember 12 matches, 10 points, and there was like, we knew that, the last season that you would need, top six would need more than 30 points. So you were right away staring at the wall. Okay. To be fair, playing Susan Chetri, Krishna, and Shiva up three was not working for quite some time, and we knew that there we need to do the tactical change in the formation, and we need to one of these three to go out. Okay, now obviously the choice was made by Simon to drop out Sunil, right? And the reason I feel is that whenever Shiva came off the bench, he was a live wire, right? Like he was creating those, was running behind the ball, creating those spaces, putting the pressure on the defense, which we found that something which was lacking for us throughout the season, that nobody was chasing the ball, nobody was pressurizing the defenders. And I think Shiva did that job. And to his credit, whenever he got a chance, he scored. So, he was delivering the results. So this was ultimately a choice now between Krishna and Chetri, because we Krishna was, when we signed him, we expected a lot from him, and captain being again, you always expect a lot from him. So I think that came down to a choice between both of these, and I think then the tactical fit was to make Sunil Chetri, drop from the starting line. I think then it started to click because Shiva then started scoring, and once he started scoring, I think there was a tremendous amount of change in the way the team went forward. Like the defense was good, but now the only part that was not working was probably the midfield with Javi, and later on Rohit added, and then the fluency and flow started coming in. So I think it was more tactical. Once you see that the three forward 4-3-3 was not working, or whatever you 3-4-3 we were trying to employ was not working, so it was just a matter of time that one of these three had to not be a feature of the starting line, and it unfortunately fell down to a choice on Sunil Chhetri. So I think it was coming. Just one point that I would make is on the Mumbai game that I was observing. Sandy's made a very good observation. I could see that the midfield and the wide players were doing so much of work. Roshan did so much of work on Changte to keep him quiet. It was one of the very few games where I seen Changte being so solidly put under control and he was a little worried because of the pace of Roshan on counter attacking him. And it's even on the left side, you had Pippin, who was completely quiet throughout the game. And the midfield was actually well marshaled, considering there was hardly any space because we expected the midfield to be run by, completely dominators, but that didn't happen. So I think, there was a lot of tactical combinations that went into until they, build up to the Mumbai game that, and that's once they stabilized the midfield and the attacking white players, I think it was a matter of time that the wins started even coming in huge numbers.
Sandeep, Sunil started the last two games. The first one because Roy Krishna, I think, was suspended,
Yeah,
and the last game because I think Javi was on three yellows, right? And
yeah.
Grayson didn't want to take the risk and play him. Do you think there's a spot for him in the next game?
Look, it's a really difficult subject to talk about when, especially when you're talking about someone like Sunil Chetri, who's is a legend, right? There's no other way to describe him and what he meant for this team also. Well, what happened is exactly what Shaggy mentioned earlier. It's they started winning, and Simon basically didn't want to tinker with it. He kept the same team for I think 5 or 6 games until suspensions and injuries sort of forced him to tweak a little bit. And he was also lucky in that run that he was getting players back from injury at the back end of the season because he lost a lot of them. Even to this day, I don't think they like the last game they played without all of their foreigners on the field. So they do tend to play a lot more Indians, and he found the right team and put it on. But on Sunil, look, he's not Sunil that he was 5 years ago, right? He's obviously aged, and but he's still tremendously effective if played in the right manner. So against Mumbai, you played him up top. He scored the goal, but before that he had 2-3 chances or half chances,
Yeah.
etc. And he was the one who was actually causing a lot of damage to that team. So he can still do that, but you have to play to his strength. Now, if you're looking for these two, Shiva and Roy, both of them can go in behind, and Roy often drops deep also. So there is always this doubt that who's going to be the one who's stretching the defense and who's going to be the one coming in. With Sunil's case, that is not really the case. He has to be the one running in behind for the most effective Sunil Chetri. And it's not that he can't hold the ball. Sometimes you've seen him lay off and run also. But one thing is the number of times he makes those runs and the number of times the midfielders don't see those runs is also there. Like you see him constantly trying to get in behind and the pass just does not come. And I think also there is a very good relationship between Roy and Shiva, who seems to have hit it off as friends and as strike partners and everything. And Roy is that kind of character. Like you go to a stadium and watch him play, and you can't see this so much on TV. I'm sure Shaggy would have seen him. He is constantly talking. He's constantly telling when he's passing the ball to midfield. He's already telling that, pointing in the direction he wants the ball to go now. He's constantly orchestrating all of this. When the long ball is too high, he is telling them it's okay. Come on, next one, next one. He's always motivating. He's encouraging. He doesn't drop his head. He doesn't get angry. He's that positive presence, and it's natural to him. In the conversation I had with him for a feature I wrote, he's the captain of Fiji. and he's always played like this, and he feels a lot of responsibility representing Oceania outside, and he wants to do well for those islands and few other things. Like he's representing more than himself. He's representing a lot of bigger things. So does he's a proper leader is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I think Sunil's situation, him as a number 10 against Goa, didn't really work. I think they were getting overrun quite a bit. Not really his fault completely. The other members in the team was also not doing a good job. But yeah, it's look. He's at the end of a contract, I think, this year, and I would expect him to play another year because Asian Cup is coming up, and he would want to play. And I think now you have to play to his strength. If you are getting 30 minutes of Sunil Chetri, you play to his strengths, and he'll get you a goal because that quality is still there. He might not be able to work like the left winger that he was tirelessly running behind, covering for Nishu's mistakes also at one point in time. He's not that player anymore, but now you have to play to his strength. And I don't know, man. Like I have to ask Shaggy as a fan. Like we've seen this over and over in world, right? Like Raul in Real Madrid or Francisco Totti in Roma. It's so difficult when they come to the tail end of their career and the club wants the coach is doing something else and they're not there as much. And as a fan, you love them, you want them to do well. How do you see this from a side of a fan, like this transition that is happening with Sunil Chetri?
To be honest, I'm a Liverpool fan and I saw the Gerrard era. So, okay, it was one more difficult because if you look at just point LSC with Gerrard and Sunil Chetri with BFC, okay, this two direct comparisons are made. It is painful. There is no doubt about it. To see Sunil Chetri not start in the starting 11 is a painful part for every BFC fan. And when I had a player fan interaction with him, it's something that probably everybody for the first half an hour is trying to convince Sunil that please sign a contract. And this was the first half an hour of just being focused, all the fans right around 25, 30 fans in the player fan interaction, just going after Sunil saying, "Look, we want you to sign the contract. We want you to sign the contract." It's overwhelming because you can't say anything over there. But look at the bigger side of picture, we have to be understanding that he needs playing time. That's where I feel the transition for us as fans is even realizing that he's not a part of the starting 11 is difficult. But not to have him is going to be very difficult for BFC because I think all BFC fan base is, you know, completely, it cannot imagine a world without Sunil Jaitri. Same way as, LFC fans didn't imagine a world without Gerrard. Okay. He was the whole and soul of the club for a long time. And, eventually part of the time that he was not performing, there were a lot of questions, but fans never wanted him to leave the club. Okay. To be honest, it was his decision. So, many of the fans still want him. There is no doubt about it. There's no second that the fans want him, like to have, end his career with BFC, whatever way that he chooses. But then we have to respect what Sunil has done for the club and wait for his decision. But as a fan, I would be gutted to see him leave, right? Like, because to have somebody of his stature in Indian football and, represent your club and be a captain for it, according to me, that's quite something. And he has probably, how do I say, motivated an era of younger players, right, in within his team as well. All right. So I think very difficult decision. And we are just keeping our fingers crossed that he stays with us.
To be fair to Sunil, even during this tough run, he's been really you've seen big players get really annoyed when they are left out of the starting 11, but he has accepted it and handled it really well. He's still a huge name, right? Someone to look at for the youngsters, someone to see what he does well, to play. One of the fascinating things about Sunil Chetri, and this is inverse of everything that happens in Indian football, is that his best years came after he was 28. His best years came into his 30s because he looked after himself in a manner and he performed at a manner that was at most professional at the absolute highest level. And to see, and I think for the next generation, especially in this club, if they want to continue with this culture that they had of winning and of this professionalism that they had from the beginning, him as a team captain is probably a lot more important than him as the number 11 on the field. And to that extent, Sunil Chetri has done phenomenally well in terms of handling the situation. And whenever he came on, he tried to give his best. When he got a chance as a starter, he scored the goal. I mean, it's a big goal, right, to score against the unbeaten champions. So he is still able to deliver those on the field, but I think Sunil off the field for that team is probably a lot more important in terms of grooming the next generation. But like I agree. I don't think he'll leave. I think he'll continue to play here only. I think this is the club. And I first ever interaction in 2013, he came in. He said, maybe I always did 2 years, so we'll see 1 or 2 years, and then it's always changed. He's 10 years, and I think one more year will be 11. So 11 years for number 11 would be phenomenal. Right? What a fantastic.
That's a good connection.
No, but you can see how much the club means to him. Even when he's not playing, he's always on the bench, eagerly waiting for BFC to score. And when they do score, he does celebrate. And you can really see how much the club means to him and how much he means to the fans. Anyways, we're talking about Sunil Chetri. Shaggy, you have any favorite or your fondest Sunil Chetri memory during his time at BFC?
I think to be honest, it's always for me to watch Sunil walk up on the field has always been exciting. There's nothing that I don't know. It stops me from saying that this is a specific moment. To just see him on the field, right? Like to just what do you call it? Whenever we win, and there are these chants that go around Sunil Chetri, and it's electric. You wouldn't find an energy that different in football, like where people are so joined. For one person as one leader on the field, right? It's a very different electric atmosphere on the field and off the field when he is there. And to be honest, it would be, I think, in my opinion, a massive this thing to say that this is a favorite moment because I myself have followed him for very less years. But whatever I've seen of him, especially against as an Indian team, my favorite was when he shot that I think won the goal against Qatar. That was kind of from a free kick spot. That was my favorite of the on the pitch movement of him. But to be actually saying the most always the moments at Kanterwa when he is there present on the field, and you should see how the fans get behind him. That's like crazy. Like it's all crazy. It goes haywire when you have those after a win, you have those chants going around him, like just him walking up to the fans and doing a namaste or doing anything.
Yeah.
There are brilliant moments, which you can watch, countless times. And I think that's going to be a very living memory for me, at least.
Sandeep, you have any favorite moments you want to add during his time at BFC? I think you're on mute, Sandeep.
Sorry. The moment that sticks in my head was not with BFC, but was at the Kantirva when he scored that goal against Kyrgyzstan. He ran from halfway line and did a 1-2 and first time finish. That is I think when you saw the absolute peak of Sunil Chetri, that goal summarizes everything: desire, willingness to run, the skill that he had, the confidence to take that shot in the on first on the run. So everything for me, that goal is the epitome of. It's like the Sunil Chetri's imprint, sort of. But for Bengaluru, look, I've also spoken to. He doesn't celebrate very often, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
whenever he does celebrate, it means a lot for him, and you understand that. Like for him, for the club, so he celebrated not the first goal against Johor. He celebrated the second goal against Johor when they went into the AFC Cup final, because he knew now that that's not game over. Now that is a tough position for Johor to come back in. That goal against Pune, I think, in the run they went into the final, the semi-final of the ISL, where he again jumped the hoarding. And you saw the same kind of celebration in Mumbai, against
no.
Mumbai, when he scored and he
Great
jumped onto
goal.
the other side. I think his wife was sitting there, was blowing kisses to his wife and to the fans and everything. So you can see the moments that it means a lot. Last year, I think in the bubble, he went and hugged Kunal after a goal.
Yep.
So you realize that this man who has scored so many goals, but there are goals which may be tap-ins or easier goals than others, but the ones that really, really mean a lot to him. and that celebration, that connection that you get with the fans at that moment, because we live for the live football, right? Like TV is great, but nothing like watching football in the stadium, and that connection that he has, like you mentioned, the chants are there, whatever else happens, that's electric. And I always think of this. But recently also I saw one of those games when he was not used. He didn't come off the bench. So they do the sprints after the game. The substitutes wouldn't play, they have to do those sprints. He came to the byline to do it, and there was chance of Sunil and Chetri, and fans were still giving him so much love, and he was very touched by it. He was also doing whatever, thank you and all of that. So that moment also sticks with me, because it's such a lovely relationship that he has with the fans.
I mean, when it comes to an end, it'll definitely be very heartbreaking. We got a little emotional and carried away also. But yeah, let's quickly get back and talk about the BFC midfield right now. The Indian duo Suresh Wangjam and Rohit Kumar are doing extremely well, and they've done extremely well during this run. Shaggy, how impressed were you with Rohit and how he stepped up? And he's been amazing, hasn't he?
So I think, Rohit Kumar for me has been a revelation this season, to be honest. And there was a lot riding on how BFC are going to be on transitions, okay? Because we tried multiple things on our transitions, we couldn't get that leverage to our forwards. So there was always this problem that our transitions were not fast enough. We were not creating enough chances for our forwards, and we tried multiple combinations. Suresh obviously was running his socks out, but somehow the midfield was quite flat. Okay, we tried Jayesh, we tried Danish, we tried multiple combinations to get to a very, kind of, how do I say it, adaptive formation so that we can, our midfield can be agile enough to switch between defense and attack. But that was not happening for the first 10 to 12 until Rohit Kumar started actually playing a brand of football, which is actually, I felt he was like a really box to box midfield. He did his job. He was linking up. He was like the pivot. He was like the guy who was linking to the attacking midfielder and playing as a pivot for the defensive midfield. And he played it to precision with possession and what they call it. How do we call it? Attacking intent, because he was attacking at the same time and holding the possession, which was creating more and more chances for our forwards going attack. So we knew that once this started happening with Rohit, we started seeing that him becoming more and more joining the attacks. We started seeing him as a completely different player, because until initial periods he didn't join the attacks. He started joining the attacks pretty late. When he started growing in that confidence of holding the ball, and then his transition into an attacking midfielder was something which was a revelation to see. He and Javi bombarding the boxes simultaneously. So we had actually front four of going forward, which was kind of a good attacking threat. Same way he was doing his defensive duties quite well, along with because he marked several key players. If you remember last, he was marking Brandon for the first half, and Brandon is a kind of player who is very difficult to mark. His passing range is tremendous, and he can convert just in a moment of flash a defensive play into an attacking thing. And he was doing a pretty good job of marking Brandon, and that's how he is. He's marked key players. His transition well. His playing style he has adapted to what suits his best strength, and he's not a very pacey kind of guy who does extremely. You can't expect him to be as pacey as Changte or something. But what I think is he's completely transformed the way being a level-headed guy right in the midfield, knowing when to break play, when to go and attack, and when to join the attack. That kind of combination has really made him a very good asset. I don't think right now there is anybody who in BFC midfield can do that job that well, right? And that's still the large, even with a yellow card, Simon still preferred to play him. Risk him was a testament to how much important he is to the squad, right? So we should see that. I think he has a great, even for the Indian team. I think this would be a big. I wouldn't be surprised if he finds a place, even in spite of the crowded midfield. Hope he finds that. But to be honest, Rohit has been great for us in the past. Second half of the season, he has been a revelation for sure.
Sandeep, same thing. How important do you think Rohit is to this team? And also, quickly to touch upon Alan Costa and his availability in the next couple of games. Yeah, if there's any update on that.
Yeah, so Alan, nobody's sure. He's dealing with some personal issues and he's gone back home. So even if he returns, I think probably the next game might be too early, even if he returns. So we'll have to take a call. But in a personal situation that he has to deal with, I think that takes priority over football any day. So yeah, and Rohit, when I don't know how many people know this. When Rohit broke into the team, DSK Shivajians, when he first started playing, played in Duran Cup, and he started off with scoring goals. I think he had 3 goals in 3 games or something like that. So he had that in his locker, and he was called Momo after Sissoko from Liverpool, actually, because in DSK Shivajians, because he used to keep running box to box sort of type of football with little long, lanky, you know, he looks a little
Yeah.
lethargic and all when he runs. So
Exactly.
he's not, but he just that way. But yeah, so when he came, then you look at the career that he's had. He's always been in teams that they put him as a defensive midfielder. So you're sort of limiting him in a box of the things that he can do. So one of the things I think Simon has done well is that he's figured out in training or whatever it may be that this boy can has the legs to go up front. And luckily for him, he scored very early on into his this good run. And I think 2 or 3 goals he scored in a row, and obviously it gave him confidence. So now if you see what he does, he's added aggression to his game, which is not something we saw before when he was in Kerala or in Hyderabad. He's a lot more aggressive, not in a negative sense. He's very quickly onto his decision making is fast. He's quickly onto the players who he has to mark. His confidence on the ball is fantastic. Like he accepts the ball. He calls for the ball in tight situations, even if he's got 1 or 2 players close to him, which is not something you see often from an Indian player to ask for. They generally look for the foreigner to do that job. So he's doing that part as well, and he's covering a lot of ground. Sort of facilitating Javi to do Javi things, whatever he wants to do. So overall, I think he gives a lot of balance to this team. And he's good at selfies also. He's quite tall, so he may not score all the time, but he's someone you have to worry about. He's close to
Yeah.
6 feet or just over 6 feet. So all in all, he adds a lot to this team, muscle and legs. And still, I've spoken to some people. He's still got things that he's not showing much. Apparently, he's got a great diagonal. He can switch play
Okay.
very well, but he's not doing it that much. Even Parag, I've heard from, I think since Eric Partalu has played there, that Parag has a great left foot for a diagonal, but we have not seen it. So a lot of the times, these Indian boys need confidence to start doing better. He's high on it now. Um, I think his contract is done at the end of the year, so I'm pretty sure he'll have a lot of suitors, and BSC will have probably want to give him an extension as well. So yeah, overall great performance from him. He's got a great story also, which I think people who read Blueprint or Deccan Herald would have read those stories as well. So overall, very happy for a Indian boy to do this well. Yes.
Sunny, do you want to just quickly touch upon the story part of it?
Okay, so look, he is not someone who played football right off the bat in school. His mother is a policewoman, so I think he went to a sort of not a military school, like one of those army type school, but I mean I don't know what to say, CRPF school. I think it is that he went to in Delhi, and he had a friend who was very close to him. And once they started playing, his friend was a really good player, and he's the one who sort of encouraged him to play and took him out in the evenings to get. They did private sessions with each other. They did fitness sessions and all the rest of it. And Rohit was not the most leanest, let's put it that way, when he was a kid. And then they continued their journey into football. And unfortunately, Mohan had some issues, health issues, and last year or year before he passed away. And when Rohit scored the goal against Northeast United, which I think is his first goal in quite a number of years, he dedicated that goal to his
Right.
friend, and his friend's parents were at the stands watching him. So he feels like every time he's playing for his friend as well, who's the reason why he's become a footballer and who's the reason why he has a career in football. So touching story that one.
Yeah. I mean, hope to see him at Kantirva next year too. But let's quickly talk about what it is to go into the playoffs now. Shaggy, apart from this one-off game, if we get through that, do you see BFC beating either of the top two sides over two legs?
So I think depending on whom we meet, right? I always maintain that Mumbai City is still the best side in the league. Okay. There is no, you know, saying anything against that, like because they have performed, they have done very well. But given what we are seeing, right, the amount of challenges that we had to face throughout the season and now what it is, it looks good on the field. The bench is properly staffed. We do have a good bench. We do have something which we can put, like, we can still go on challenging till the last thing. And I know that's the only thing you can expect in, playoffs or qualifiers because they are really unpredictable games. You cannot say, unlike a league, you don't get second chances here. You would always be, one player's mistake, one wrong decision at your end or as this thing, can, change the whole dynamics of the game in, qualifiers or knockouts, if I'd say. So I think we are riding a tremendous wave of optimism where we can challenge it because there is no fear feeling as such that there is a big team or a great team. All teams are like, it depends on like how they play, and then what happens is we have set up something in the club right now, which is kind of a very stable starting 11, which we are not seeing. So I think based on that, we can challenge most of the top teams. We're already in a position of top three. So after those two, we are the third team. So it makes a lot of sense right now to talk that can we, if we had the same run at the start of the season, things would have been different. Probably would have been challenging for the top one or two. But you know, not counting my chickens before they hatch, I would say we are in a very good position right now to challenge anybody. Especially at least that we can say that we can be a good, you know, we should be in a good state in the knockouts. We should be really.
Sandeep, we're the side with momentum. How much does that play into this whole knockout narrative?
Dude, momentum is absolutely key. It's not just about who you are playing in the league. It is also about when you are playing them. That plays a major role in a lot of situations. So, like we said about Mumbai, it's the second game against Mumbai. Maybe Mumbai was not that driven. Not to say that they didn't play well or Bangalore does not deserve anything. To take nothing away from the performance. But now going into the knockouts, everybody is obviously motivated because it's on the day, especially the first one because it's just one not game. So you're trying to get a home advantage. You might. It looks like it could be Kerala, right? If Mohan Bagan win
Yeah.
today, it looks like it could be Kerala, and all the emotions that come with it. And now it's about managing all of those as well. And momentum is absolutely key. I think at this moment in time, everything is looking BFC's way. But again, it's that if on that day of 11 players, three of them have an off game, that's it. And to be fair to Simon, also something that we often don't talk to him about is he's actually tactically quite smart. He doesn't talk about it much. Like there are like managers who explain what they are doing, but he doesn't talk about it. If you look at the game against Mumbai, he sort of pushed Luna into a situation where he was not affecting the game. It was mostly on the wide far end and was not doing the damage in the middle as much. He was sort of marshalling him around in the manner, in some sense, and nullified him. Now you can't do that against Mumbai, obviously, because there are far too many of them. So he went in a different direction. He's tactically very astute. He tweaks a little bit here and there. Sometimes he man marks players not for the whole game, for a period of time. So he does all these small things, which I don't think he gets the credit for. So it's in the knockouts now. And I mean, I wouldn't bet against them to beat anybody, but I do think Hyderabad and Mumbai are probably better teams than if the season would prove it. But Hyderabad has not played well for the few weeks now. Is it got something to do with all the rumors that came up with Manolo's contract, or the rumors that came up with Halicharan? And maybe they're probably not, but you never know how these things affect a team. Right now, I'm sure they'll all be motivated in the semifinal, but yeah, I mean, you wouldn't bet against BFC to go all the way. I mean, people in the club are very confident. Because I booked a vacation to Goa on that weekend because we didn't know what the final was, so I booked it in early February. Now it looks like final is happening on the same weekend where I booked a vacation first. So it's a whole other thing now. I spoke to the club and they were like, "Yeah, you better come and cover the game." So they're very confident, and that's very important for any team.
Especially if it's a BFC Kerala game and this one-off knockout game at home. It'll be fun. It'll be exciting.
Yeah,
That's
I
about it.
can't wait to see Ivan. Honestly,
Okay.
the I think he's there are few managers who sort of like Manolo does his thing in one way, right? Manolo Marquez he's created a team in his identity, and Des has done the same thing. Grayson does not look like a guy who has that what do you call X factor in terms of standing out in that sense, but he's done really really well, and he's molded a team in his image as well. But something about Ivan, man, it's I don't know the way he talks or the way the people react to him. He's special. I think he is the reason why that club is doing so well. He's that cult of personality is really really strong with him. But yeah, you saw the first game. Sometime I mean, you would not bet against Grayson to out tactic anybody, honestly.
I hope BFC do end up making it far into the tournament and eventually challenging for the title itself. But thanks, guys. Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks, Shaggy. That's we don't have time for much more now. Hopefully, we'll do one more session like this, and after the next stage or after the semi-final, and we'll discuss BFC's progress again. And yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks. Thanks,
Thanks.
Rahul. Thanks, Sandy. Nice
Take
seeing you
care.
guys.